Hello everyone and welcome back. So as I mentioned previously, I did make a mistake in the first episode with the mappings here. So I'm going to go ahead and update to the 2016-11-22 mappings because I know those have the updated item stack methods or method names. So again, open command prompt window in your Forge directory and run the same command that you used to set up Forge in the first place. And I should go ahead and close Eclipse. So we're going to run that, and that'll download the same version of Forge that we had before, but with the newer mappings that contain names for the new item stack methods. So after that's done, we are going to be starting on our mod's code. We're going to create the mod class file, and we are going to create a proxy. And I think that's all the coding I want to do today. After that, we're going to look at creating a project on GitHub and then getting that set up so that we can upload our code to GitHub for the purposes of source control, basically, to back up our code in case something goes horribly wrong and so that others can see our code. And that's something that a lot of mods do. If you don't want your code to be open source, you can not do that. But a lot of mods are on GitHub, and that's actually an excellent place to learn about modding, is to just go on GitHub and look at the source code of other mods. And I will be uploading the code we write in the tutorial mod, plus a bunch of added comments to GitHub so that you can review it and hopefully understand it better than I can explain in the video. So I'm opening up the workspace from the same directory as before, but it's going to have the newer version of Forge, and that should hopefully fix some issues with the mods I've imported, allegedly. Some of them are still having some kind of issue, and okay, I know what that is. So whenever we update a Forge version, we're also going to have to tell our projects that we're using this new Forge version. So although our Forge version itself is not updated, we've updated the mappings, so it's actually a different jar file. So we could go, let me review that again, right click on a project, go to Properties. Under Java Build Path, we go under Libraries, and the Forge source jar is the one that we want to replace. So in this case, if we scroll far enough in there, you can see it's got 2016-11-11, which is the old mappings, which I don't want to use. So I'm going to go ahead and click Remove on that. So I removed just the Forge source, and I'm going to click OK. Now that's going to make a bunch of new errors because suddenly Forge is gone. So let's go ahead and hover over something like item stack. And we are going to go, come on Eclipse, cooperate with me. It is not being very cooperative. We're going to go to Fix Project Setup, and it's going to recommend the wrong thing. Okay, this is not going according to plan. It's the curse of recording stuff. Alright, let's go ahead and find that thing ourselves. Normally, because the MDK example will have updated to use the new version, it will recommend that. But in this case, it looks like we may need to go find it ourselves. Wait, did I just do setup decomp workspace, or did I do the Eclipse one as well? That may be where I went wrong here. Okay, now things are behaving as intended. I guess I forgot to tell it to do Eclipse as well. So we could see we got a new version here with the 2016-11-22 mappings. So we can go and select that one, and that should fix the errors that my projects have. And I'll have to do the same thing with gems over here. So again, that's Java build path, remove the forge source, and you could go add external jar to find it yourself, but I find it easier to just let Eclipse recommend the project to me. Project's not the right word, the right jar file. Okay, so that fixes my existing projects. Not quite. Okay, well that's a dependency on Guide API, so let me go ahead and just fix my stuff really quickly, and I'll be right back. So again, if you need to work with another mod, it's add external jars in the build path, and select the jar file you need, and that's it. Come on, errors, go away. I swear it's normally not this hard. Oh, I selected the sources instead of the actual... yeah, it's going to be one of those days, isn't it? Okay, so now that I've fixed my mess, why don't we go ahead and start? So right-click on your common folder under your project, and new class. Now, the package name, typically in Java, the package name is kind of like a URL, but in reverse. So what I typically use is net.silentchaos512 dot, and then something to do with the name of the mod, like gems lib. In this case, we will go with tutorial. So again, that's something like net.com.org, and then your username typically, and then something to do with the name of your mod. So for this class, we will call it tutorial. Typically, it'll be just whatever you named your project. And superclass can be object, no interfaces, finish. Okay, and for my own sake, I'm going to open up the main class from gems and just kind of move that off screen so I can reference this. I'm kind of writing this bit of code on the fly. In the previous tutorial, I wrote the code, then took it out, then did the video, referencing the code from another location. For this first coding episode, I'm just going to write the code on the fly because it's stuff I've done too many times to count at this point. But I still do need a reference to make sure I'm getting everything right. So the first thing we need on our class is an annotation, and it is mod. And it is that one. And this is actually going to need a couple of parameters here, but let's go ahead and add a couple of variables here. Something seems... No, tab space 2 is correct. I don't know why I was thinking it was 4. I think I've just been working on too many other projects lately. Okay, so we're going to create a couple of constants. So that's public static final. And they are all going to be strings. So I'm going to create a mod ID constant. Typically I put an underscore in it like that. I think I like the way that looks better. Either way you want to do it. So this is where we choose our mod ID, and this is important because you will need to be consistent with your mod ID. And although you can pass forge a mod ID with uppercase letters and it will lowercase it for you, there are places where you will need to have it lowercase. So if you're creating a new mod now, I recommend sticking to the new system of all lowercase letters and underscores. So for example, tutorial underscore mod would be an acceptable mod ID. We're just going to call this one tutorial. All lowercase letters, no special symbols or uppercase letters or anything like that. And I really can't stress how important it is that you be careful with your mod ID. It's kind of hard to put into words, but there's a lot of places it's used, and if you mess it up, you're going to have a bad time. Alright, so now that we've got our mod ID chosen, now we need the mod name. And typically this will be pretty similar to your mod ID, but you can put any characters you want in this, and I'll go with what I used in the previous series and just call it Silence Awesome Tutorial Mod. Just to show that you can put uppercase letters, symbols, spaces, whatever you want in there. Next up, we're going to have the version, although you can put the version number string directly in here. I feel like I'm failing at talking, so you could do something like that, but that's a bit inconvenient because you'll have to replace it in multiple places. So we're going to do @version @, and this will be replaced in a build script later on. Next, let's go ahead and do a dependencies string. This is not required in all cases, but more often than not, I find that I need it lately. So one thing you can do is tell it to require a specific version of Forge. So required after Forge, and to specify the version, we do an @, and to tell it to do a specific version and up, we do square left bracket, then the Forge version number. So I think we're on 13.19.1.21.88. Then we do a comma, closing right parentheses, and that'll tell it to do that version and onward. And then we can add a semicolon and add more dependency strings. So for example, you could say after and then a mod ID, and whatever mod has that mod ID, your mod will load after that one. So that's useful if you're doing interactions with that mod and you need to make sure that your code comes after theirs, to make sure that, say, you want to use items from another mod, you need to come after that mod so that you can use them. If your mod loads first, things may not work. And the difference between required after and after, required means that that mod needs to be loaded. After means it can optionally be loaded, and if it is, it will load after. So let's go ahead and remove the extra portion here. Can we leave that semicolon? I'm not sure. Probably better to remove that. One final constant here, I'm not sure if we're actually going to use this much, but let's go ahead and do a resource prefix. And a resource prefix consists of your mod ID in lowercase. So previously, when uppercase mod IDs were okay, we would do a .to lowercase, and then just add a semicolon to it. I know I just said semicolon, but it's actually a colon, and that's all a resource prefix is. So in this case, it would be tutorial : just like that. And that should be all that we need. So I'll go ahead and show you the Silence Gems mod file again, and you'll see all the constants are right here, and it's pretty similar. I've got some other stuff there that is like the dev-env is kind of a hacky solution for requiring a specific version of silent lib. Because the version string is @version, if I try to list a specific version while running it in Eclipse, it doesn't work. So this is kind of a little hack to get around that. So this is something that gets replaced in the build script. So again, this is probably not something you need. But if you're curious, all the code for Silence Gems and almost all of my mods, all the ones I maintain at least, are on GitHub, so you can go view those at any time you wish. Now, our mod annotation isn't very happy right now. You can see the little red underline beneath it. That means it's not very happy. Something is wrong, and we need to give it more information. So in parentheses, we're going to say mod ID is equal to tutorial.modid. Name is equal to tutorial.modid. mod name. I think you can see where we're going with this. Version is equal to tutorial. I still cannot type tutorial apparently. Dot version. And dependencies is equal to tutorial.dependencies. So easy enough. The mod annotation basically tells Forge that this is our mod. This is the class that defines our mod and everything it's going to do. And these are some details about it that it needs to know. Okay, so we've got our useful constants up here. And we could also declare some variables that are specific to our mod. They could be static or they could be non-static. I typically use static ones. So, for example, we could put other variables here. One I like to have is my own random object. So this could be static or not. Just to declare a new random object. If you need random numbers, you can just call this up. There are a couple of other random objects in Minecraft, but having your own is kind of nice as well. And then if you were to look at the gem source code, you'd see there are a couple of other things, but we don't have those. So now, Forge actually needs an instance of this object. And we are going to use an instance annotation, pass it our mod ID, and we're going to create a public static instance of our class. And we can just call it instance or whatever. And one thing I forgot to mention before is, see how it was red underlined because we don't have the import. In Eclipse, you can Control-Shift-O. That's organize imports. It will organize all the imports up here and import anything that you don't have. It will ask you what needs to be imported if necessary, if there's some conflict. Which I think there might have been with random. Yes, there was. I'm just so used to this, I just go through it without even thinking. But you can see there's a java.util.random and a scala.util.random. Do not use anything from Scala. It will cause problems. Alright, next we are going to want a cited proxy. This is not something that you need to use, but I believe it's a good thing to have. So we need the cited proxy annotation, and it needs two, I guess they're called arguments. So there's a client side, and we need to give it the fully qualified name of our class. Now this class doesn't exist yet, but we will create it in a little bit. So again, the package name for this mod is net.silentchaos512.tutorial, and we could create like a proxy package. I think I'm going to leave them in our top package there because I want to reference these a lot, so I want to be able to find them really quickly and easily. So I'm going to call you client proxy, and now we need a server side, and this is going to be pretty much the same thing, except it's going to be called common proxy. Now you could do a server proxy instead if you wanted to, but typically just a common proxy is best, and I'll explain a bit more about how these classes are going to be structured in just a moment. So we actually need another public static instance. In this case, it is our common proxy, and we will just call it proxy. Now, of course, these are underlined because, or the common proxy is underlined because it doesn't exist yet. So now we've got three functions that we need to add, and they are going to have an event handler annotation on them. So the names of these functions doesn't exactly matter. It's the argument that passes into them that determines what they do. And event handlers are something very useful in Forge and will enable you to do a lot of more complex things later on. We will probably do an episode dedicated to event handlers later. In this case, we're going to have a pre-init, init, and post-init function. these represent different stages of the initialization of your mod. So it's divided into 3 stages, and basically the way Forge works is it will go through the pre-init of all mods. Then after all the mods have done their pre-init, it will do the init, and then the post-init. So it's basically done for compatibility reasons. So the argument of this function is fml pre-initialization event. We can just call it event or whatever. Organize imports to import the event handler annotation. And let's go ahead and add our init. Again, the name of this function doesn't really matter. It's the argument it takes, fml initialization event, that determines what it is when it's called. And finally, our post init. Now let's take a quick look at gems again, and you'll see my pre-init function is here. And it's pretty big. It's got a lot of stuff in it. That's where most of the stuff happens in this case. Then there's init. It doesn't have nearly as much stuff in it. And then there's post init, which has like practically nothing in it. And I think that's pretty standard. Most stuff will happen in pre-init. Some things will happen in init. If you're having problems, sometimes moving things to a different phase can be helpful. So I want to add one line of code to each of these functions. We're going to put in pre-init. We're going to call proxy.preinit. And I guess we could pass it that event as well. In our init function, we're going to call proxy.init, passing it the event, just in case we need it. Then in post-init, we're going to call proxy.postinit. I just had a key combination that I'm not sure what it did, but it focused on Audacity, and I'm slightly concerned. But it looks like everything is going okay. Could anything else go wrong? Okay, so basically what I'm doing is I want to pass control over what's happening to my proxy. So, to get a better idea of what's going on, maybe I should go ahead and create the proxy. So you will typically have 2 proxy classes, possibly 3. So let's go ahead and create common proxy. This will inherit from no particular class. And you can put it in whatever package you like. Just make sure the name matches what you entered right here. So let's go ahead and create a couple of methods that we called before. Pre-init, which takes fml pre-initialization event. Let's put nothing in there for now. Then we're going to make an init, which takes fml initialization event. Nothing in it. And a post init, which will take fml post initialization event. And that's all we're going to do in here for now. Let's go ahead and move this over so that we can continue to see the main mod file here. Okay, let's create another new class and call it client proxy. Now this one is going to inherit from common proxy. Maybe you can see where this is going. So this is going to inherit everything that common proxy does, but we have the option of overriding some things. So we can use an override annotation, which is not necessary, but you should do that whenever you're overriding a method. It will save you some pain later on. Maybe not with the proxies since you're creating this class, but when you start creating your own blocks and items and overriding methods, you will want to have that override annotation Trust me, it can get very messy between Minecraft updates if you do not have override annotations. So we are going to override our pre-init method from before. Let's give it the same exact signature. And let's go ahead and call super.preinit because we want to do everything that common proxy does in the client proxy. And if this is not making sense to you yet, don't worry, I will explain it. So again, we're going to override our initialization event. Call super.init because we want to do everything the common proxy does yet again. And once more for post-init. Just like that. So as you can see, the client proxy is inheriting from common proxy, and it is doing everything the common proxy is, but we have the option of doing more. And this is what you want. Because of the separation of client and server in Minecraft, there are things that only exist on the client, like models, textures, things that only the client would need to know. But the client also needs to know almost everything, if not everything, that the server knows. So the server has common proxy. The client has client proxy, which is common proxy plus all the client-side stuff. Now, if you did have something that needed to be only on the server, you could also create a server proxy, which inherits from common proxy. So I hope that makes sense. Basically, the proxies are just separating client and server, saying that these are things that the client needs to do, and these are things that the server needs to do, or both. So our mod class as it is, I think is not really going to change much more. Everything that we're going to be adding into these initialization phases, I'm going to be putting into proxies to make sure that we have the proper side to everything, whether it needs to be client or client and server. So this video has gone on longer than I thought it would by the looks of it. And we haven't really gotten a mod that does anything, unfortunately. We could go ahead and launch it. First we need to add that, so by the little bug icon, click on the triangle, go to Debug Configurations, make sure Client is selected, go to Class Path, and under User Entries, make sure MDK Example is selected, click Add Projects, and select your mod or mods. And we can uncheck these two boxes down here, although it doesn't really hurt anything. Click OK. Click Apply. Then you can do the same thing for the server if you need to, which occasionally it is useful to run a test server. Click Apply. So now if we click on the little bug, make sure that Client is the first one up there first. If not, you can click the triangle and click Client. And there's another error that I forgot about. So again, let's go back to Debug Configurations, and I think it's under Arguments. Yes, we need to go under Working Directory and select Default. Click Apply. Do the same thing for the server. And now, hopefully we can start Minecraft. Alright, here we go. Minecraft is up. Let's check our mods. And you can see that our awesome tutorial mod is here. It's missing its mcmod.info file because we haven't created it yet. Don't worry, we'll get to that eventually. So that's it. We've got a working mod that does absolutely nothing. But it's got a good structure to it that will make building onto it easier. So I've got two more things I want to do really quickly. The first is create a GitHub project. So I've got GitHub right here. So I'm already logged in, so sign up for GitHub if you haven't already. click Start a Project, and we're going to call this Tutorial 1.11. Perfect. A wonderful name. And give it a little description. This will be public. Let's go ahead and initialize it with a README. License. The GNU Lesser Public License version 3.0, I think is what I typically choose. .get ignored, we can just leave that alone for now. And create repository. So we've made our GitHub repository. We need to do something else though. So let's click this button up here, clone or download, and download zip. So open that file, and actually that didn't quite do what I wanted it to. Scratch that. Okay, so let's try copying this URL, and let's see if we can do anything with git crocken here. Okay, so git crocken is one way that you can interact with GitHub, push commits and such. There are other clients. There's a command line git utility that you can use, which I've used in the past. Git crocken is probably my favorite right now. Let's click there, go to init, and I probably should have done a little bit more research before making this video. Okay, really quickly, I'm just gonna back up my work here. Okay, so this information should do what I want. Maybe like that. There we go. Clone the repo. Clone failed because it's not empty. Okay. Let's go ahead and just delete our stuff. We should have done GitHub repo first. That's why we backed up the files though. So again, that is clone. Why can I not paste? Okay, let's try init instead because I don't understand what's going on. Create repository there. Okay, let's copy our GitHub URL again. So I clicked here to add remote. Put the pull and push URL to be the same. There we go. And let's go ahead and bring our files back so you can see there's some new stuff in there. There we go. And now up here, we can see the files that we created today. So let's go ahead and stage all changes. And let's say create mod and proxies. Commit. And push. Okay, I think I've got this. So now we can push, and our branch is tutorial 1.11 master. Submit. Gonna have to log in. Alright. Full fast forward if possible. Did anything else go wrong? Force push? Yes. And we pushed successfully, I think. Huzzah. Yeah, I'm no GitHub master. You may want to look up a tutorial on how to do GitHub. But hopefully the editing made that horrible ordeal a bit better. Okay, so I will go back and comment up these files that we created today so that you can view them on GitHub. And I will do my best to remember to include a link to this, but here's the URL right up there if you need to. It's available right now to view. So one more thing I would like to mention is that there's this Discord server that I was invited to a while back, and I believe it is free for anyone to join. So here's their webpage. mcmoddev.com. It's the MMD server. A lot of great people on the server. I've been on it for several months, I think, and try to contribute occasionally when I can. But from what I've seen, it's a lot of great people. There is a mod development channel where you can ask mod development related questions. There's also the Coder Talk channel, which is just kind of programming in general, and a bunch of other channels that you can go. You can just click on the Discord link up here, and that will invite you to the server. That's all there really is to it. I highly recommend that you go check that out, join the server. That's really all I can say. It's a place where you can ask for help if you need it, if my tutorials are not sufficient, which they probably aren't. So thanks for watching. The next episode is going to take me a bit longer to produce, probably, because I'm going to have to do a little bit of research. Ever since Minecraft 1.8, you can't just give a texture for an item or a block to load. You have to give it a JSON model file. You may have heard about the JSON model files. They are terrible, but you have to use them. And honestly, I've got most of my JSON file loading wrapped up in silent lib so that I never have to touch the stuff, and I'm going to have to do some research on how to write the code to load the models because I've got that all wrapped up, and I only look at it when I absolutely have to. So I don't know off the top of my head how to load a model for an item. Imagine that. So thank you for watching. Feedback in the comments is always appreciated. Comments in general are always appreciated of any kind, except first. Don't say first. No one likes first. Now I'm gonna get like 10 people saying first. Who am I kidding? There's not that many people who watch my videos. So again, thanks for watching. I hope you're enjoying the series. I hope you're learning something from it. And I will see you on the next episode.